skipping along a little bit here in chapter 31. Beginning of the chapter, we've talked about externalities a lot. A couple of sections in there we're not going to cover in the videos. You're not responsible for those sections. So moving along here to 31-4, this is our discussion of something called a public good. And before we define public goods, let's make reference to private goods. Private goods are something that we've been talking about a lot. It's something you're very familiar with, but we haven't formally made a definition for it. Private goods are rival and excludable. Okay, rival and excludable. Rival essentially means if I consume a good, you can't. So essentially the good gets used up, it gets exhausted. The type of stuff that you buy is rival. Okay, a sandwich is rival. If I buy a sandwich, you can't have it. If I eat the sandwich, it's not still around for you to consume. If I buy a shirt, it's rival. You can't enjoy it. If I get a filling in my teeth, the dentist is using up resources on me that can't be used on you. So it's rivalrous. Okay, so rival means one person consumes it, other people can't. This concept of excludability is oftentimes an extension of something being rival. Excludable means there are ways to stop you from enjoying the benefits of a good. All right? There are ways to stop you from enjoying those benefits. The benefits are excludable, means I can exclude you from getting benefits from it. Okay? So let's stick with that example of a sandwich. All right, what can I do to stop you from enjoying a sandwich? There's lots of things. All right, let's stay relatively practical here. You could eat it. If I eat it, you can't. I could charge a price. If you don't have the money, you won't be able to buy it. I could tax it. All right, there's all kinds of things we could do. All right, if I want to stop you from consuming a sandwich, it's really easy to stop you. Okay, there's lots of things I can do to stop you from consuming it. So the types of stuff you buy are private goods. Right? And it's no mistake. The alternative to this is public goods. Public goods are really hard to make a business from. It's really hard to sell public goods. So, let's get this definition now. By the way, public good, you may have heard people use different definitions for public good. We're thinking about this from an economic standpoint. So this is what we're referring to with public goods. Public goods are goods or services that are non-rival and non-excludable. All right, so they're the opposite of private goods. They're non-rival. It sounds weird the first time you hear it, but non-rival means if I can consume. So if I consume the good, you can also still consume it. Sort of the benefits don't get used up. The benefits don't get exhausted. Okay? The benefits don't get used up. That sounds strange, right? How could I consume something and you still consume it? That sounds very strange, but in reality, this is really common, okay? You look at a beautiful sunset. You enjoy a beautiful sunset, I think. You probably would be willing to pay to see a beautiful sunset. But the problem is, if you can see the sunset, other people can too. The benefits are non-rival. Looking at that beautiful sunset does nothing to stop others from looking at that beautiful sunset. Right? And that's kind of a silly example, but it fits this description of being non-rival. Non-excludable now. This basically means there's nothing I can do to exclude you from enjoying it. nothing I can do to exclude you from consuming it. And again, looking at a sunset, same deal. There's nothing practical I can do to keep you from enjoying a sunset, okay? That's kind of a silly example because, sunsets, there's nothing you can do to control them. There's no way for the government to create sunsets. But let's try to think about some more practical examples, okay? So now some examples of public goods. In no particular order here. Let's think about clean air. All right, having fresh, clean air. I think we all agree that that's something that we enjoy, right? I enjoy clean air. You do too. The problem is it's very hard to create a market for clean air. Think about the rivalrous and excludability of it. If the air is very clean, there's nothing I can do to stop you from enjoying it. If I breathe in clean air, it still doesn't stop you from breathing it in too, so it's non-rival. And there's nothing I can do to exclude you from clean air. There's nothing I can do to stop you from enjoying it. So here is the market failure, okay? Since no one can really own clean air, there's probably not going to be enough clean air. If there was a way to sort of monetize clean air, people could produce it, make a profit off of it, probably there'd be a lot of clean air. But the problem is there's no way to do that because there are always going to be free riders. I'm just going to write this definition down here. A free rider is someone that benefits without bearing any cost. Right? And this is why clean air is going to be a problem. For example, let's say that there's some pollutants in the air and there's a way to get those pollutants out of the air. Right? We've got this particulate matter that's in the air, and in our city we're trying to clean it up. So imagine somebody comes to your door and says, for $1 million we can clean the air. Right? If we can get $1 million rounded up, we can clean the air. How much would you like to pay to keep the air clean, to get the air, pristine? Think about that as an individual. If there are 100,000 people who live in your city, you giving $10 isn't going to do anything, right? So you might just say, I'm not going to pay, and hope that everyone else does. That's the free rider problem, okay? Maybe you've seen this for a group project. I always worry about this with group projects when I create them. There's a free rider problem here as well. Let's say that there's a group, they're doing group projects of 6 students, right? So 6 students are supposed to get together and work on a project. The problem is the benefit from that project is non-rival and non-excludable. If I get a high grade and you're in my group, you also get a good grade. So it's non-rival. If I get the good grade, it doesn't stop you from enjoying the good grade too. And it's non-excludable in all practical senses, right? If I get the good grade, there's nothing I can do to stop you from getting the good grade too. So as a result, you might have the free rider problem where people choose not to exert cost, just enjoy the benefit without working hard. You've probably seen this before, right? Other examples here. Nature reserves. These big areas that we have in the United States where basically people aren't allowed to build stuff and you just allow nature to be nature. Think about that from a business standpoint. There would be no way to profit on nature reserves, so the private market is not going to create them. But that doesn't mean they're not a good thing. They're probably worth it, okay? Probably, you can sort of think of it this way. If Georgia decides to build a big nature reserve, consumers, right, people who live in Georgia would be willing to pay for that to exist. I like the fact that nature reserves exist. It makes me feel good about myself. It makes me feel good about society that nature reserves exist. But the problem is those benefits are non-rival and non-excludable. I can benefit from the fact that there are nature reserves because it makes me feel good, and that doesn't stop you from benefiting too. So there's no way to create a price. There's no way to charge customers for that. Because if you just go around saying, would you like to pay for nature reserves? People just say, no, I hope that other people pay. There'll be free riders, okay? Let me give you just one more here. National defense. What I mean by that is the military and such. Think about this problem, okay? Let's say that our country has a really strong military and it keeps us very safe. It's probably true in the U.S., right? So we feel safe because of our military. Maybe you don't feel that way, maybe not actually. Depending on your own political leanings, maybe this is true, maybe it isn't. But let's say it is, all right? Because of our military, you feel safe. If you feel safe, that doesn't stop anyone else from feeling safe too. So it's non-rivalrous and non-excludable. If I still feel safe because of the military, that doesn't stop you from feeling safe. And there's nothing that I can do to stop you from feeling safe, right? It's non-rival and non-excludable. So again, we're going to have this problem, the free rider problem. If we go around the country and say, how much would you like to give to the military? I'm not giving anything. If I give $100, I don't feel any safer, right? Because it's not about what I give. It's about what those other 330 million people give. There's going to be a free rider problem, right? I raised it up here, but there'll be a free rider problem. So for each of these situations here, the problem is there's no way to profit. So the market won't create these things. The market will not create these things, even though these things make society better, okay? Obviously, having clean air is something people like, but there's no way to profit off of this, so the market is not going to create these things. So if the government doesn't get involved, guess what's going to happen? The market is going to get very dirty, right? If I pollute, I get dirty air, which only hurts me a little bit. But the problem is, it creates dirty air for everyone, right? It creates dirty air for everyone out there. And there's very hard to figure out a way to fix that problem. So the government is going to have to get involved in each of these, okay? In the case of clean air, the government's going to have to create acts and policies against pollution. They do that, right? In the case of group projects, you can think of the teacher as being the government. The teacher's probably going to have to say, look, if somebody in your group's not doing a good job, contact me. We'll fix that, right? That's trying to get rid of that free rider problem. For nature reserves, there are no private nature reserves that I know of. And if they exist just because somebody's kind of unusual and just really likes nature. In reality, nature reserves have to be created by the government, right? Because there's no way to stop people from benefiting. Think about the big parks that we have in the United States or the world, right? Yellowstone Park, Great Smoky Mountains National Park, and so forth. These are created by the government, right? Yellowstone National Park is so big that it's non-rival and non-excludable. If I'm in Yellowstone National Park, you can be in there too. You can be enjoying it as well. And it's non-excludable in the sense that it's so big, I can't stop people from getting in, right? There's no way to put a fence around it and charge people to get in. So as a result, Yellowstone National Park does not exist unless the government creates it. But I would argue that society is better off because of it. So the government is creating goods that otherwise wouldn't exist that's making people happier, right? And just last one right here, national defense and military. There's not many private armies that I know of. There may be a few, but in reality, when countries get very big, the free rider problem is large. The government is going to have to control the military. All right? So this is a public good. The fix is the government has to provide them. Think about the things that the government provides. A lot of them are public goods. For example, the interstate highways. Creating interstate highways, it's very hard to be profitable, so the government creates them, right? We could go on and on of examples of this. Sidewalks in cities. There's no way to profit off a sidewalk. What are you going to do, charge people a quarter to walk on a sidewalk? It's not going to work, right? So the government's going to have to provide the sidewalks if it's worthwhile, okay? And again, we could go down and down the list of examples. So public goods. They are goods that are non-rival and non-excludable. The problem is the free market's not going to provide them, so the government has to step in and create these things for society.